Well, well, well. Okay, first things first. I am sick and tired of you freeloaders just, taking my videos, getting all the expertise that I give you for free, by the way, for free, and then you don't bother to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Yeah, you may have followed the goddamn, what's it called? WordPress website, blog that I have. Yeah, that's one way you can make me happy. But the second way you can make me happy is bump up my subscribers from 7 to 8, because then I can go to my friend or family and be like, see, my channel, it's doing numbers. Yeah, maybe one day, right? Look, and the other thing is, just could you send me some questions or thoughts or some ideas on some videos you would like covered. Not because it's just it's just because you're lazy. It's well, no, I can make these videos without you. Trust me. Whoa, that was actually kind of confrontational. It's trust me, I'm better than you. No, not that. It's more I can come up with things on my own, but and that's okay. I can still do that, and I still will be doing that because I get a lot of enjoyment out of it, and plus it's for my own purposes of documenting to myself the important principles that I have found in life. But I would also, my hope is that you're watching this and it does help you or it does speak to you in some way. But I'm always trying to think of ways to better target, what's important to you and what you would like questions on. And maybe I have an answer, maybe I don't, or maybe we can just have a talk about it, which is a good way of kind of getting to a solution in a lot of ways. But now that is done, let's focus on what today's little message is about, which is a continuation from last week. We were talking about the book Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel something. I can't remember his name. It doesn't matter, whatever. And we introduced the ideas of System 1 and System 2. This is part 2 of that kind of series. Not sure how long it's going to be. It's just maybe 3 or 4. I don't know. Haven't really fully mapped it out. But this one is about another core principle or core concept that runs throughout the book, which is called what you see is all there is. What you see is all there is, which is a short and succinct way of saying that whatever you're aware of currently is all there is. It kind of is the idea or choice or decision, theory version of object permanence. It's object permanence is that when something is out of my sight, it still exists, without me observing it. It's an object permanence, and what all you see is all there is essentially the reverse of that in your brain and how it thinks. In other words, it only for the most fact meiji, when I say only, I mean more it heavily weights to towards what's readily available and in front of you. So the information or the things you've been alerted to are the things that are going to come forward first. They're going to be things that imbue your decision with weight. Is going to be what's readily available, and usually you'll miss things there'll be maybe core information that you probably that you might even know, but because what you see is all there is, because it's front of mind and it's easy to access. What happens is your System 1 goes into its automation mode and gives you an answer really quickly, and if your System 2 isn't ready to catch it and then evaluate the answer provided by System 1, then what will happen is that a potentially bad decision or a bad choice could go through without you having, properly evaluated, because at the time your brain was just going at, what it was directly seeing, and everything at the time seemed all right. And the guy in the book, I think it's probably a good part here to say, is that although, much of the book he writes about System 1 and kind of a lot of the faults and flaws about it, and that is true, but what he does say is although it does get things right, it tends to get things, although it does get things wrong, it also tends to get things right as well, or at least in the approximate. so, it's the reason why you don't have to think about breathing and all that stuff, because your system one just kind of handles that and you don't really need to think about it. So, because imagine if you had to think about breathing all the time. Fuck, that would be so hard. Plus, how would you do that while you're asleep, right? So, palming things off to the automatic functions of your brain is, kind of when you think about it, in many respects, it's a really smart survival strategy, because the less you need to think, the more active you can kind of do things, because you're being weighed down by less, like we talked about before in the previous episode, cognitive strain. You're weighed down by less cognitive strain, so you won't get into things where like you'll, almost like option paralysis, when you're thinking so long about something and all the potential options or choices that you could make, that you end up kind of not choosing anything because, well, you can't make a decision because it's just kind of like information overload. And, what he tries to get on is like, system one necessarily isn't bad. It can just misguide you at times, and you need your system two to be there to catch it. But unfortunately, a lot of the times it's lazy. So, because it takes conscious effort to, stop for a second when you're trying to make a decision, and then actually, combing through your memories, but also your lived experience, which is something we'll get into a later video with the difference between the experiencing self and the remembering self, because I thought that was a very interesting concept that he talks about in the book. But I guess it's just, I don't really have a solution to this, and that's what you'll notice with these videos. There's no real solution to this, or any way, or not any way, but there's not a quick and easy way to deal with these things. And even if you are aware of them, you still will be prone to making them. And that's what he says. He's like, although I am more, what he says in the book is like, even though I'm more aware of the situations where my system one and system two can, malfunction, or, not operate in the correct, a kind of correct way, and ends up with a bad decision or a bad outcome. Even though he's more aware of those situations, he doesn't mean he always kind of manages to overcome the weaknesses in his own own cognitive weaknesses and biases, and instead kind of can still make issues. And I think that's a lesson that all of us can kind of understand, is that even though we might be aware of this stuff, it doesn't mean that we are completely immune to making bad choices based off just split second intuition, gut feelings on things, which can be right at times, but also can be prone to error. And I guess what we can kind of learn from that is to not be too hard on ourselves in that respect, but also to kind of do what he talks about, which is just by being aware of those situations and trying to think of those situations. It could just be when trying to buy a car, or what to get for lunch. There's all sorts of ways where with pretty much every decision you're making, that these two systems are at play, or these two personalities within you are always kind of not battling against each other necessarily, but are at least operating, and aren't always operating in an, just choked on air. God, man, I might die before this video, so I may as well just wrap it up before I die. God, the choices you might make, and based off those two systems, might not be optimal because they're not working, in tandem in a really good way, in a good way. But it takes a lot of effort to do that, and you can't do it for every decision, so don't even try. But I think it's something to think about, and maybe think about in your own life maybe this can be an exercise. Think about in your own life, where are situations where you feel, maybe in the past, or maybe something that comes, happens to you quite regularly, or a decision you make quite regularly. When has there been a time where you made a split second decision, and then, when you really think about it after the fact, it's more based, if you had thought about it more and took more conscious effort to think about it, and, go through that, issue of cognitive strain, you actually would have gotten out with a better outcome. And I know that's a very broad kind of category of something to ask, but I think that's probably the best, because then it allows you to essentially lay out any sort of choice where that's kind of happened, and it can be very broad, and can, I guess, help you to map out situations that are similar to that, and can give you an example of, that's where that kind of process happen where system 1 gave me an answer and my system 2 didn't bother, to really evaluate the answer given up by system 1. It's like you can think about that and then think about other times or other circumstances where that could happen. And I guess from that point, just being aware about it and just, when it happens next time or could happen next time, use that goddamn system 2, man. But that's going to be it for this one. Video coming next week. It's going to be a continuation. We're going to talk about... Oh, God, what are we going to talk about? Well, we can talk about either the halo effect, which is one possible option, or we could talk about the remembering and experiencing self. If you want to make a choice and actually determine, oh my God, audience input on this one, audience participation, if you want to decide which one I do first, which one's going to be coming next week, comment or write a message or something or email me, I don't know, contact me somehow and let me know which one you'd like to hear first, the halo effect or the remembering and experiencing selves. Because then you get to have a say in how things go, and isn't that a great feeling? So, see ya, bye.